You're listening to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast, the only podcast for active, athletic, and adventurous women and those who aspire to be. We've got your back as you navigate the ups and the downs of motherhood, midlife, and menopause. I'm your host, Allison Hylett, here to remind you that female isn't fragile. I'm a strength, conditioning, and nutrition coach who's trained hundreds of women to achieve their goals to get fit, lift heavy, go the distance, and feel like a badass in every area of their lives. Each week, you'll hear from me and some of our awesome guests as we educate and empower you during each stage of your fitness journey, whether you're already crushing it, fighting to get back out there, or starting from day one. So friends, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fit Bottomed Girls podcast. With me on the show today is my newest Barbell BFF, Niki Sims. And if you want to know why, you should check out her Instagram, which I've linked in the show notes. I double dare you to not be inspired when you take a peek at what she's doing. We're coming together on this episode today to talk about the shift in perspective that's much needed for women around exercise. Many of us Gen X and Millennial women came up with the old school diet culture driven messaging around using exercise to burn calories and get smaller. But as we've gotten older, we realize that that messaging isn't doing us any favors. So today we're talking about how to make the shift from approaching your fitness from the perspective of shrinking yourself with grueling workouts and restricting calories to the new school and way more effective approach of using fitness to promote your quality of life and longevity. First, a bit about Niki. Niki is a passionate advocate for helping others realize their physical potential. With over a decade of experience in barbell coaching, she specializes in creating personalized programs, refining technique, and offering unwavering support. Her own journey has been marked by a personal transformation from struggling with body image to embracing a healthy relationship with training, nutrition, and agency, highlighting her deep understanding of the importance of building muscle for longevity and strength. Niki leads the staff and client experience team at Barbell Logic. She's also the host of the Beast Overburden podcast and former host of the Barbell Logic podcast, a top 200 fitness podcast in the US, Canada, and Australia. So let's get into it. Welcome, Niki. Thanks so much for joining me on the show.
It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Today, we are talking about one of my favorite things to shout to women from the mountaintops, and that is strength training for women as a driver of better quality of life and longevity. Yes. And I'm so stoked to have you here, Niki, because I so vibe with your approach that educates and empowers women to treat muscle building and strength training like 401k for their health, especially in midlife and post-menopause.
Yeah, I'm totally the same. I just want women to know what it's like to have muscle and what it's like to have a body with muscle. It's so different. It's just completely different. And you don't know till you know, but just like when you know, you can never go back.
You can't unknow.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I am a Gen X woman, so I grew up with a lot of the opposite messaging. So it was this really long, winding road for me through body image struggles and unlearning a lot of BS cultural messaging around women's health and fitness to finally arrive at this place where I can emphatically say that every single woman should be actively trying to gain or maintain muscle mass through proper weight training, especially as they age, right? So let's give this conversation and our listeners some context. Take me back. Where did it all start for you? What were your struggles and how did you get here?
Well, it's funny when you talk about how we grow up. I vividly remember this conversation with my sister. She's like a year and a half older than I am. And we must have been just teenagers. And we were talking about Kate Moss, the stick arms. And we were just kind of like, there's no way we can be that. And I remember that's just this vivid memory that popped into my head. And, over time, that's still what I thought I should be for many, many years. Yeah. And I couldn't be that. Like I'm tall, but thanks to my mom, I have big arms, which now they're muscular and I love them. But I was, so uncomfortable for literally decades, just like trying to, like chicken flare my arms out in all photos and just know that I'm supposed to have twig arms and not going to happen. And that's okay now. It's actually great. But it turned into me going to the gym a lot. I tried to play sports and I just wasn't a valuable contribution to the teams.
Same.
Waist to height, like not worth it. But I ended up in the gym. I would go every day after school, just on my own to this gym we had down the street, and I would go to classes. I really loved it there. I really just played around with what I was doing. Probably found something from Shape magazine or some ridiculous program. But then that turned into CrossFit in 07, 08 when it was getting really new. I was in my mid-20s and the guy I was dating at the time was really into CrossFit. So we started doing that. And I went balls deep in that. I had gotten my degree in construction management. I worked in that for 4 years, but I was just obsessed with CrossFit. So I quit my job. It was a great job. It's like, no, I'm going to be a CrossFit coach because I have $1,000 in a free weekend.
Naturally. Yeah.
Yep. And did it. And I worked at the CrossFit gym in New Mexico. It was the only one that was around at the time. And then we left and opened up our own CrossFit gym. And I did that for a few years. But you've probably run into this. CrossFit has its own little lifespan of, are you going to get hurt? Are you going to go into weightlifting? Or are you going to be a professional CrossFitter? And I hated running, so I chose the weightlifting one. And that turned into just barbell, barbell, barbell. And that's been since 2013. So since then, I've been a barbell coach in person, now all online. And, when you live for that long, and you've probably learned this too, like it has to be about what it does for your life, for your day, not about like this outcome that you have to get to every time you train or every 3 months. It's just like, this is an identity. Muscle is an identity. And I think you can only get there when you've done it as long as you and I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you won't be in the game very long if it's all about those outcomes. It's really about that process of just keep showing up.
But I don't think I ever touched a barbell until CrossFit. And I got to give them a huge shout out for making people feel like they can do it, good or bad. But it did put so many barbells in people's hands. And I'm stoked about that. And wherever that journey takes people is really cool. But I think it really made the barbell super accessible.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of women, that's where it started for them. Until that point, it was not something that was being introduced to women and put in front of them. It was just like, we're going to pick up a barbell. And then the culture just sucks you into that, and the community environment. I see that with women who are outside of CrossFit. Sometimes they're a little bit intimidated by that jump.
And sometimes a 45-pound bar is too heavy. A lot of women can't press a 45-pound bar. And that's sometimes the complete limiting factor, or it's too hard for them to squat. And I really loved how CrossFit created a need. Thank you, Rogue Fitness, for rising to the occasion, creating training bars and 15-kilo bars. Even something as simple as that is pretty rad for being like, no, you can do this now. This is a thing that you can implement into your program. But that was really fun.
Yeah. So you coach women, barbell. Yep. What kind of obstacles do you come up against? Any resistance to the barbell that you experience?
At this point where I am, people come to me for barbell training. It's in our company name, Barbell Logic. Yep. But sometimes women come because their friends have been training with me, or really often their husbands. And they start to hear, oh, I should be building muscle too. And you have this home gym. It would be neat if I could spend some time in the home gym too. And then when you tell them, okay, so now you're going to put the bar on your back and do a squat. And some women, that movement itself is really challenging for flexibility and just straight. Like they can't squat all the way down to the bottom. And that right out of the gate can become really kind of defeating and scary if you can't go all the way down. And then you probably have someone telling you, like, bless their partners for wanting to give them cues. Sometimes that is not the best sound.
Yeah. No.
They're like, okay, knees out, get lower. And they're like, I can't go any lower. Like, this is what I can do right now. And I think all of a sudden that can become super frustrating.
Yeah.
So I think that's an obstacle, just the lack of strength. And it's okay to have a lack of strength. That's what you're there for. Yeah. But it's helpful to have someone tell you where you're at is great. Let's figure out what the next minimum step is for you to be. And that's awesome. You don't have to be at a certain point right now. It's okay if you can't squat all the way down. You teach movement. It's super important to understand how to go to the next progression of strength with whatever body you have.
Yeah. And, in my experience, women expect that they're not going to feel strong when they first start weightlifting with the bar. And that's okay with them. They've come to terms with that. But the mobility piece is where they start to get a little bit like, I can't do the full movement. And then there's conversation about how do I change that? Well, you squat. You keep doing the movement. Don't stop because you don't have that mobility and think
don't do lunges.
Squat. You don't need to just keep stretching. If you just do the movement, over time your mobility will improve.
Thank you so much for saying that.
A lot of people can't when they first start. But you keep squatting and your mobility improves. That's how this stuff works.
Yeah. And man, I really hope people hear this. Like, you need to get stronger to get to depth, and to get stronger, you have to squat. So thank you, Alison, for saying
that. And I've worked with people that have the mobility to get low, but they don't have the strength and that end range of motion. So as soon as you put the weight on them, they don't have the strength to move through that section.
It's okay. Yeah. You'll get past that in what, 3 weeks? Really fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you just keep showing up and your coach gives you the right amount of weight, it is not going to be a 10-pound plate. That's fine. It might be a 2.5-pound plate or a 5-pound plate, but your body will feel that that is different. And then it rises to the occasion, which is really cool. That's a whole nother thing. I'm sure you run into this is you can have a workout session where you leave a lot in the tank. You don't have to crawl out of the gym. You don't have to feel sore. You don't have to that you've burned 550 calories. You can leave and be like, oh, I think I could do more. And sometimes that's like, yes.
That's a big transition too from like CrossFit where it's like,
Yeah,
on the gym floor.
do more,
So,
do your
yeah.
recovery to let's do a burnout of 100 pull-ups.
Yeah. My Olympic weightlifting work came out of CrossFit as well. I was really into Olympic weightlifting. And I would leave my Olympic weightlifting sessions and like, I feel good. Like I got a lot left. I got juice. I'm not crushed. I'm not destroyed. This is amazing. And it was completely different than what I experienced in CrossFit, where like literally at the end of every WOD, you're laying on the floor, sweating and trying to breathe and trying not to die.
That's how you measure success. Like,
yes. Yeah. Yeah. I see that in a lot of women that come from the cardio group fitness class side of things where they'll go through a strength training workout and they're doing jumping jacks or burpees in the rest break. No, 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 no.
We need you to like, actually, could you just sit down?
Yes. Yes. Sit down. Yeah. So while we're on that, let's talk about this burning calories workout as how you measure success.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing in strength training.
Yeah. And I really like this in your messaging that you fuel yourself and you recover so that you can train well. And that's something that I really started to pick up on recently, like probably in the last 5 years when I was like 33 to 35, because I couldn't recover as well anymore. And something happened then that became really different. And I needed to start not working out so that I could perform better, have actual rest days. And I needed to make sure I was eating enough so that I felt good while I was training. And that means that for me, when I am training, I feel powerful. I feel like I can use my muscles well. I go to spin class just for the joy of it. I just love the music. And when I go to a spin class and I feel depleted, I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. I am not recovered. Yeah. And then I see other girls in the room and I'm just like, I have a feeling that you are trying to starve yourself and you are trying to burn a certain number of calories today. And I just don't want to be that. And so you have to learn how to create the circumstances for you to be successful when you're training and know that when you're training, you're supposed to feel strong. You're not supposed to feel beat up. And I think in things that you do, ultra endurance and with Olympic weightlifting, you need to be on and you need to have the energy that you need for a really long time. And you can't do that if you're trying to be smaller. Impossible.
It don't work. It don't work. Yeah. I always remind myself and I remind my clients that you eat to earn the right to train, not the other way around. Right? If you want to increase or expand your capacity and your potential, you have to have more than enough gas in the tank so that you can reach for that goal, right? If you're only fueling kind of to try to maintain your body composition or you're kind of trying to keep a cap on it, there's a certain point you're going to be sitting in your car pushing on the gas pedal and you're not going anywhere because there's no gas in the tank. It doesn't matter how much you jam down on that thing. You're not going to get stronger. You're not going to be able to show up for your training and give your training what it needs enough to push you into those training adaptations, whether it be strength or ultra endurance or whatever. And then you're not going to recover. Right. Yeah. And it doesn't get easier to recover as you get older.
Right. I don't have an issue with working too hard. I have an issue with recovering enough. And that's so different than what it used to be 10 years ago. And that becomes a factor. I see that in all of my clients as they hit their late 30s and then getting into their 40s. It's just like, okay, I can give you work. That's not the issue. We need to give you recovery. That needs to be this new variable in our training that we have to talk about. It's so different.
Yeah. So it needs to be like actual recovery and not just time away from the gym, right? I mean, we're really trying to pay attention to sleep. Like before you could get away with your 5 hours of sleep, you know, not so much anymore. And then down regulation, doing something that is recuperative. A lot of the women that I work with, and me as well, we've got high intensity lifestyles. And so a lot of them kids, and then they're also taking care of their parents and they have their high powered job and then they want to train really hard and they want to do all the things. And it's like, okay, cool. When are you recovering? Fueling is the other really big one, especially for women in this age group, because women's health and fitness, my whole life was about thinness, not about women's health and
That's being less of yourself.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it certainly wasn't fueling so that you could do more and be stronger and be more powerful. It was fueling so that you faded away to nothing.
Yeah. And one thing you made me think of when you were talking about all these life expectations, being a mom, being a wife, being a boss, being a coworker. And I see this in myself and so many other women who I work with. It feels like you can never do enough. You can never be there enough for people. You can never give enough to the house. You can never do enough at work. And that I see that come up in other types of working out too, where it's like, should have done cardio for longer. I should have not eaten that. There's just this line that you can never touch. And the cool thing when you start appreciating recovery is you can do too much. There's a line now, and you actually have to learn how to stop doing something and know that you are doing enough. And I think that concept is so hard. It's such an emotional one too, to be like, you are doing enough. It's okay. And that's major. It's such a tough one for us to feel. And I have to really hold that line for some of my clients too. I have this one who's coming to mind. She's such a diehard. She's a mom, she's a nurse, but she's also going to nursing school. And so she's driving like hours every day. And she messages me and she's like, I have like an hour. Can I do a session? And I'm just like, no. In fact, just find a quiet room and breathe. Yeah. That's such a big one to learn, is to know that there's a point that you can do enough and it's okay to not have to go farther than that.
And what are really good training grounds for that? Because it's so ingrained in us. I even think about running a business where the to-do list is never going to be empty. Never. It doesn't matter if I work 23 hours a day from here to eternity. The to-do list will always have something.
Isn't it funny when someone asks, like, oh, are you done with work for the day?
Yeah.
And I'm like, never. No, never.
Do you mean I'm walking away from my to-do list?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And I run into this with a lot of my clients where they get stuck in that it's never enough. I'm never enough. Going into a workout and learning how to practice, recognizing you don't need to leave everything. You don't need to leave wrecked. You don't need to overgive. You just need to show up and give the amount that feels appropriate for that day. And really feeling that out is such a good lesson. Just the process of going to the gym and confronting all of these beliefs and these patterns that I have, and having this like low stakes environment to really work on these parts of myself. Because when you were even saying it, I was having an emotional response to that. The feeling of like, okay, I've done enough for today. I can walk away. I can be proud. I don't need to be completely depleted and wrecked to be able to say I gave my best. Your best is everything you've got until there's nothing left. It's what you have to give that day while you still have something left for yourself.
Have you ever, or how did you, if you have had to, learn that the hard way?
Man. Okay. So I think one of the biggest wake up calls for me was I had a career in the legal field for 12 years before I quit my job and started doing this. And that was in 2015. But leading up to that, I was working in a Fortune 500 company in the legal department. And I was coaching people on the side. I was coaching runners at the time, helping them be more durable so that they didn't get hurt all the time. Because I was a runner who got hurt all the time. And so I had a job. And then on top of that, I had like side thing. And then I had a life. And I ended up in the hospital with shingles at age 34. And the doctor was like, are you stressed? You got a lot going on. And it was one of those moments where you're sitting there going, how did I end up here? I'm literally pushing myself so hard that my system has shut down and let this happen. It was those moments. There was something wrong with what I was doing, with how I was approaching it. And a lot of therapy and a lot of burnout, things not working well. This is something that I'm doing that I need to do a better job at. And then as I came into my 40s, it was really coming to terms with, I can't give 1,000% of myself to my business and my home life and also train this level. And so how do I find some place that's more sustainable, that allows me to have something left over for the other things in my life? How can I find that enough in my training? It really taught me about leaving something in the tank. You don't need to completely deplete yourself in everything that you do, you have to be more clear on what that expectation is for yourself. Giving all isn't till you're dead. And workouts really taught me that because I was getting stronger. I was feeling better. Everything was still improving, even when I didn't completely exhaust myself in my workout. I was easily able to recover. I was able to show up to my next workout and give more then. And I started to see the benefits of don't really grind yourself into the ground in everything you do. You're going to be miserable. It's not sustainable.
And thinking about the sports that you do, Olympic weightlifting takes a lot of time. You got to do a lot of reps, and how much time it takes to train for ultra races, that requires so much time. I can't help but be curious how you've found out what is enough for things that are actually quite demanding.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
It moves with the seasons of my life, right?
Yeah.
Like I had 2 years where I worked really hard on training for a 50-miler. And so it was a long build. It was a lot of long races. And I just kind of threw everything I had into running. But I always kept the strength training because it's such a big part of why I can still do this in my 40s and not be beat up. The strength training was really solid. So I would keep that in. I would prioritize that, and I would train a little bit less than a lot of ultra runners would. So I would still keep that priority in my schedule because I knew it was important. I couldn't get the volume that if I wasn't making sure I paid attention to strength training, because I have a long history of injuries. I broke my hip when I was 30. I've had every running injury in the book, and all of that taught me you got to keep strength training. And I had that long season, and then after that, I took a long season of focusing just on strength, getting back the muscle mass. I have to eat a lot in order to not get hurt doing that, but I also have to eat a lot in order to. Yeah, I know. Be able to train. I mean, like eating and doing laundry was a full-time job, and recovering. And then there was the training, and then there was my job. But then over the last year, I have dedicated a lot of my energy to my business.
Yeah.
I acquired Fit Bottom Girls. I already owned a business. I pulled that stuff together. And it was like, I got to take a big step back from pushing myself on training. Yes, I could. And it would look really good on social media. I have business and at the blog and the podcast, and I'm running ultras and I'm doing it would look good because that's what everybody wants to see. But I knew that it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be maxing yourself out every day. And so I really have found that I have to be very intentional with seasonality. Some seasons are for running, and some seasons are for lifting, and some seasons are for competing, and some seasons are for business, and some seasons are just for me, to live my life and just enjoy training without it having to have some goal that it's attached to.
So what about you? Really learned how to prioritize, which is more and more important. That keeps coming up for me too. I used to do jiu-jitsu really often at the same time I was competitively powerlifting, and same thing. I broke. Like I seriously broke. I ended up with a really bad back issue. It was never diagnosed as anything, but I went from being able to deadlift 430 pounds to not being able to deadlift 95 pounds. I was great at jiu-jitsu. I competed. I won. And then all of a sudden I couldn't get on a mat because I had a shoulder injury and a back injury. And I was like, this is my identity. I am someone who brags about my lifting. I am someone who goes to the jiu-jitsu gym 5 times a week. And now I can't do any of that. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
So very similar to you, where it's just like, wow, the hardest lesson of what I'm doing isn't working anymore. And it took years to rebuild from that, honestly. It really does come down to prioritizing, like you were talking about, is, okay, this is the season of strength. This is the season of Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm still going to work out, but I'm also just really going to enjoy everything. That's okay. Sometimes you turn the burner up and sometimes you turn the burner down while you're cooking other things. But it's like, it's always there.
It's always there. It's always there. It's just, shifting and redirecting resources to the place that needs them at the time. And I think, if anybody's looking for the hack, the secret, it's that. It's dialing it up and dialing it down. That's the sustainability. It's right there.
The secret is it's boring. Like it looks boring on paper. When you write out a workout, I ran out a workout for someone. It's like 2 or 3 exercises, 3 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 5. That's not going to pick up anybody's attention in a magazine. The things that get people's attention online or on like templates you can buy or whatever, it's this list of like, look at all this work you're going to do. Yeah, this is what you need to be doing. But like, it's boring and you're going to have to make trade-offs.
Yep. You're going to have to be clear about what it is that you're trying to accomplish in this season of your life. And you're going to say no to a lot of other things. Every time I train for an ultra, it's great. I love it. It's fun, but there's a lot of things I'm not doing. I'm not going to be able to travel because I need to get my long runs in every weekend. And I have to sleep more. I have to eat more. There's so many considerations and so many things that I'm saying no to. I'm not spending as much time lifting as I'd like to be. I'm not signing up for CrossFit competitions at the same time. It's that focus that allows me to keep going, to stay in the game long enough.
Stay in the game.
Yeah. I've taken myself out of the game. You just shared your story. I've taken myself out of the game many times. And it's like, okay, that was probably too much.
Yep. That was a little too hot. But what's neat, and I love how you shared this, is now we know that we have time to do all of that. I don't know what was going on before where it's like, I got to do this all now. But I was like, okay, we have enough time. And that's why I love this message of like, it's lit 401k. That means you are always investing something. You're not putting your entire bank account into it, but you are always doing something. And it's for the slow, steady progression that pays off in the end. And because you know how to prioritize and how to turn things up and turn things down and have the right expectations, that's what keeps it something that you can do and allows you to do more when you're like 60, 70.
Yeah.
Totally. Playing it smart.
Yeah. It's stacking bricks, right? You don't need to build a whole wall. You don't need to, populate the entire 401k all at one time. Just let it go in there and let it compound, let it grow, let it be a smaller effort that's more sustainable over the long run, because fitness is a long game. Muscle is a long game. You're not going to do one workout and then turn to Popeye.
It's so hard to build muscle.
I try really, really, really hard. And I've never just been like, oops, I got swole.
Oh no, quads are too big. Please less quads.
Well, I'm actively trying to get bigger, and it's really hard.
It is. And I see it now in this age group where when we're younger, it's just like boobs are in a good spot and butt's in a really good spot. Legs look pretty good. But now, like me and my friends are all entering our 40s and we're just like, things are different now. But because I've spent, 20 years building muscle, I'm just like, okay, I look different than other women who are in their 40s and don't lift. And that's why I want more women in their 40s to lift, is to know that you don't have to go on Ozempic. Maybe you need to if it's the right health move. You don't have to go under the knife to look different. You can enjoy what you're doing and you can be on the same team as your body instead of just like being mad at your body. That's a really interesting thing now in this age group.
Yeah, I think that it's been overcomplicated. It's like you need this and you need that and you need that. No, you just need to go to the gym. You just need to strength train. Like, it helps with blood sugar regulation. It helps with aches and pains. I started experiencing symptoms of perimenopause when I was 42. So I've been in this for a couple of years, and my peer group is in it and my clients are in it. And they're talking to me about how their metabolic panels are changing because estrogen is a big driver of a lot of that. And as you lose estrogen, things start to change. And these are things that I just have not had to worry about because I've been working on muscle mass for a long time. So I have an enormous depot for glucose and glycogen storage because I have a lot of muscle tissue on my body. My blood sugar levels are not changing in a time when they're known to change. And cholesterol levels, see a lot of women in this age group too, waking up with a lot of pain. And that starts earlier. That's like a mid-30s sort of thing. I think that people are like, oh, I'm getting old and I'm just going to hurt all the time. And
it's like, no. Yeah. There are a lot of jokes about like, well, that sometimes does happen. I'll like sneeze and tweak my neck. It's just like, okay, guess that's what happens now. But I'm still going to go to the gym. Just, that's not going to stop me from doing anything.
Yeah. And having that muscle mass and moving your body in different ways and challenging your body and training your body to withstand more force and move more load and things like that are a really good insurance policy for the other things in life. We know we're aging, but we still think we're young enough to do X, Y, Z. And then that's where we end up getting hurt, like helping somebody move a couch. But I don't worry about that. I mean, we just moved. My husband just bought a new bed and foundation. We just moved it up to the top, up 3 flights of stairs this morning. And I was worried about that because I'm like, cool. I lift, right? I have trained my whole life to lift. Hey, you. I wanted to press pause on this episode for a second to talk about your fitness goals. Those sweet dreams of being more active and feeling athletic and confident and doing epic, adventurous shit. Or maybe you just feel like you're getting older, because we're all getting older. And you, like me, never want to give up on carrying all the groceries into the house in one shot or picking up that heavy Amazon box without worrying that you're going to throw your back out. I know you're busy. You're probably listening to this episode while multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm on to you. And the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting strong and fit is knowing how to use your workout time most effectively. Like exactly which exercises are worth your time, when to do them, and the number of sets and reps to get to your goals. You probably also tried other fitness apps and programs out there, only to feel like they weren't right for your needs. You want a program that has it all: strength, power, cardio, mobility, and recovery, all built right in without spending your whole life in the gym. And you want experienced coaches around to answer your questions and a community at your back to help you stay motivated and inspired. Look, I've been coaching women for a long time now, and the truth is that you don't need another fad diet or complicated, time-consuming workout routine to support you as you age. You just need to train smarter with simple, progressive workouts and a plan that's designed for your body and your life, whether you're navigating motherhood, midlife, or menopause. And if this sounds like exactly what you've been missing, I invite you to join Stronger 365, a progressive strength, power, and conditioning training membership for women like you who are ready to stop winging it and take their training to the next level with more structure and support. And the best part? This program has 3 different options, so you can choose your own fitness adventure based on your goals, how much time you have to train, and what equipment you have, whether you've got access to a full gym or, like me, work out at home. And it's run by me, Allison Hyland, and my awesome team at Miles to Go Athletics. Head over to the show notes for all the details and to join our membership community. And as an FBG, your first 2 weeks are on me. And now, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, you mentioned it. We're going to talk about it because I think this is something that's really important for women to think about, is that investment and the quality of life that you get through strength training. What are some of these big, valuable things that women really should be thinking about when they're thinking about getting those reps and putting into that 401k?
I think there's one important component, which is the habit that it creates. So if you can start strength training when things are pretty good, like when estrogen production is higher and maybe life stress is a little bit lower or not, but if you can create the habits around building muscle and knowing what it takes to fuel muscle building, when things get harder and the circumstances change, you won't be going up such an uphill battle. Starting a couple years before menopause, perimenopause, getting into it in your 30s, but getting into it whenever is the best thing you can do. But give yourself some time to establish those habits, because when things get really tough, it's even tougher to change that momentum because you're going to be tired. Your energy is going to be all over the place. You're going to be moody. You're going to be really going like, what the hell is going on with my body now? Like, who is this? But if you know what it takes to support your body, you have a big edge. I think that's really important.
That is huge.
Yeah. Because it's such a hard time of life. And I haven't experienced it yet, but a lot of people who I've been working with, all of a sudden they're just like, I don't know, like this isn't what it used to be. Things are not working like they used to be. Like I can't
brain
recover.
fog.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
I had anxiety. I got depression.
Huge things, like huge things. Your brain is like different. And you're like, what is this voice inside my head? So that's hard. And knowing how to have a space where you can get into this, like I have this phrase in my head all the time. Like, how do I be on the same team with my body? Instead of why am I mad at it? Or
how can I exert my will on
different? Yeah. It's just like, okay, we're in this together. What do you need right now? And you start to really pay attention to what you need. And another habit is, how do you eat 150 grams of protein a day or whatever that might be for you?
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't happen on accident. Like, no, especially if we're trained to not eat very much. You have to know what a meal with 30 grams of protein looks like, how to shop for it, how to make it taste good. And that's another big one because, it's harder for our bodies to absorb protein as we get less estrogen in the system. So that's another one as well.
Yeah.
And then just being able to move well. It's such a fun part of our days that I want to make sure that I can still have some physical activity time. And if you don't have muscle, you're not going to be moving. That's your currency. Build it.
100%. And the clients that I work with that are close to retirement or post-retirement, one of the biggest regrets that they have is that they did not invest in their autonomy and their independent living for a long time. Right.
Yeah.
So they start to see that there's something that is lost, that they're not sure at that age that they can even get back. And as somebody who grew up where our parents were boomers, and watching them age has been tough.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been really tough. And I don't want that to be what I experience. I don't want to be like, I can't physically get around my house. I can't physically take care of myself. I want to be able to enjoy my retirement for a few years before that happens. I don't want to work my whole life and then get there and be like, oh, just sit on the couch now.
Yep. I have to watch all the Price is Right that I've missed for the last 20 years of my career.
Yes, that is not my vision of my golden years, you know? And so that's what we see is that people have not invested anything in their physical health and fitness and their ability to be independent and their longevity and their quality of life until they get to that point. Oh, I'll worry about that when I have more time. And when you have the time, though, that's when you need it. You want to be able to say, I can get up and down the stairs as a 65-year-old person. I can carry my own laundry basket. I can get up off the toilet. If I fall, I can stand up. Like there's really basic stuff that is really preventable if we're focusing on the right things at the right time earlier on. Just like you don't want to get to retirement and go, okay, now I'll save for retirement. No, that doesn't make any sense.
And my parents act that way too, where it's like, oh, wait, I wish I had more money and I wish I had more muscle. And oh my gosh, both of those fears, like, no, it's not okay. I hate for it to be a scare tactic, but it works on me. Just like, that's not the life that I want. And like you said about falling, if you fall in your 60s and 70s, that is close to being a death sentence because you will break your hip and you'll be in a hospital. And then
mortality goes through the roof.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's terriful for me.
It is. And like, so I had a hip fracture a few days after my 30th birthday. I had a stress fracture in my hip. And recovering from that was tough as a 30-year-old. It was like a really long process. I lost a lot of muscle mass because I couldn't do any weight bearing on my leg for a really long time. And it was just really painful. It was really awful. But I was 30 and I was able to regain what I had lost. That time period of no activity was not as impactful as it would be if I were later in life. And what you lose during the recovery time period is really difficult to get back. And that's why mortality comes into play. It's like,
there's no bounce back.
No, you can't. I mean, I had plenty of estrogen at 30. I was able to gain muscle mass. But then like later on, when you don't have as much, it becomes so much more difficult. So there was no way I would have been able to regain what I had lost. And then everything is more fragile. Everything is less durable because you don't have that insurance policy of supporting your joints and cushioning your falls and all the good things that muscle does.
And your bones. I'm like, now I'm thinking, if I ever fall in my 60s, I want to be the one that breaks the floor. I don't want the floor to break me. For all my muscles.
Amen.
Really strong men.
So it's so important for women because a lot of the women who are coming into this age group now grew up in the time that I did, where strength training was little pink 3-pound weights that your mom had that she used as doorstops. And now they're being told that strength training is a really important thing for women. And I really wish that future generations really listen to this message and are starting to strength train earlier on, working on these things before they become advanced stage life things.
Before it's a crisis. Have fun with it before it's a crisis.
Yeah. And to your point, those routines that you build, those skills that you're building, that strength that you're building, it takes time, and it's easier to do that when you don't have as much working against you. You don't have obstacles in the way, and it doesn't get easier as time goes on to make time to go to the gym.
Like you just know, you're just like, I go to the gym now. That's what I do.
Yeah. And that's the stage I'm at where it's like, this is just what I do. I don't have a conversation about it. I just do it.
Like a joke with my friends. I still go to the gym whenever we travel. It's just like, well, I'm going to pencil in some gym time. They're going to be there for like an hour. That's just what it is.
Yep. This is like exercise tourism. I got to check out the gym.
It's so fun. It's not a great time.
I love it. I think it's great.
And I think that's a fun thing that I think I was getting kind of into the grim side of it, but it's really fun. I keep thinking of some of my heaviest lifts that I've done. And there's nothing like that sense of just like every cell and fiber in your body is giving literally everything. And you know what power feels like. And I haven't felt that in anything that I've done at work, in anything that I've done, like cleaning the house, anything that I've done outside of that moment of just like, this is me. This is what it feels like to take responsibility for myself. And now I'm just like reaping the benefits in this one rep. It's ridiculous. I can tell you felt it too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because this is 100% me. There was no team behind
Nope.
this, like nobody helped me lift
No one's
it.
paying you to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope. And it rocks your world. It
Yeah.
really does. Because even in business or in my personal life, I accomplish something and it's great. And then I'm like, on to the next. But that buzz of, oh, I just lifted that.
There's seriously so much fun.
Yeah. And working with women and moving out of dumbbells, kettlebells only, and resistance bands or body weight stuff, right?
Yes.
Especially at that low level of like resistance bands and body weight, where a lot of women are going to the group fitness classes and this is what they're used to. And that's a great starting point for a lot of people. But the one thing that it's really limited is there's no number on those. But when you have that quantifier, when you're like slapping bigger cleat the barbell, and then you're like getting out the fractionals. I mean, every little bit of that, right? And doing the math.
Yeah.
You screw up the math and you realize you lifted more than you intended to. I mean, all of these things are just
so
like
fun.
daily, you can blow your own mind. You know, it's such a cool thing, especially in the beginning. I've been doing this long enough where it's like most of my stuff is pretty boring and it's the same percentages and the same lifts and but in the beginning, I wish more women knew those newbie gains, and you get instant gratification from strength training. You don't have to wait. We've been harping on, it's good when you're 80. You're going to love it. You're going to be so glad you did it. But you could be glad you're doing it every single time you go to the gym.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love my ladies when they're hitting PRs on bench press. When she bench presses her body weight, she's like, fuck yeah. Like, that's so cool. Like, you are deadlifting more weight than what most men weigh. Like, you could totally drag a body now. Like, really awesome.
Like, I'll never forget the point when I was bench pressing my husband's body weight, and I was like, yeah.
That's awesome. I just really invite everybody to feel that because I don't think you can feel it anywhere else.
No, it's like the closest thing I've ever felt to like Superwoman.
What was that lift for you or moment? Is there a certain one that comes to mind?
I love being able to bench press that much, or like crossing the 200 line on the back squat, or getting over 250 on the deadlift. But for me, I really found that learning how to get the technique of a snatch down was such a interesting process. You got to hit positions, and if you can hit them and connect them in the right flow at the right timing, everything will come together. Sometimes for me, it's about the strength and those big PRs, but there's this moment where when you're working with snatches or clean and jerk, and you feel it in your bones that was a beautiful lift. It doesn't even matter how much weight was on the bar. It's just like, God damn it, that was a good lift.
In those lifts, you're moving the bar like 7 feet. That's 7 feet of opportunity to do it wrong. Oh, yeah. When you get that right, oh, man. Yeah, that's good.
And you feel like sometimes you're doing your warm-up sets and your drills, and you only got like 85 pounds on the bar, but still it's like, oh, the timing of that was flawless. And I feel it. And then you're always chasing, like getting that timing down. And so even if the big lifts are intimidating for women to go that high, which really shouldn't be because it feels amazing and awesome.
And you can do it by the time you're at that point.
There's also lots of opportunities to just perfect the movement and optimize the movement and feel really good that all these reps that you're getting are adding up to something. It's so validating and so interesting to me to work with those types of lifts for different reasons, because I love the like right of powerlifting, and then the Olympic lifting is it's a different animal. But
that one is a challenging one. That's like, I dabbled in golf for a minute. I was like, nope, this is not for me. But it reminded me of Olympic weightlifting, where it's just like, you're going to do probably about 29,000 of these wrong, and then you're going to do one right.
Yeah. And I think though, for me though, too, that helped a lot with like failure tolerance in my life is like, not every rep needs to be good, right? Hopefully we're trending in a better direction.
Yes.
So cool. There's so many different styles of lifting. There's so much you can do with a barbell, and there's so many lessons and things you can learn about yourself and confidence you can build. Please lift. Please lift.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun to invest. You get to learn what it feels like to feel good, and then you get to make a habit out of that. And I just want people to know that that can exist. And I'm really excited that you're out there helping people do that, helping women know that they can feel strong and they can eat to feel better, and that there's a point where they're doing enough. And I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. I love that your specialty is barbell too. I really would love to see more women saying, you know what, I'm going to give barbell a try. And then just because you'll fall in love, I promise you. I promise you.
So good.
All right, Niki, thanks so much for coming on. This has been so awesome.
Thank you. Man, I had a best time. I'm like super stoked for the rest of the day now.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So tell me a little bit about Barbell Logic, your online barbell coaching, and who would be a good fit for that.
So I have a really amazing team of coaches. There are about 50 coaches. We have a great roster of female coaches as well. We will work with anybody, anywhere in the world who wants to learn how to get strong with the guidance of a coach who knows how to coach barbell training. And our platform allows you to upload your videos for every workout that your coach writes for you. So it's a program that's tailored to your history, your goals, what equipment you have, how frequently you can train. Like, we don't do templates. Like, we write programs for people and you interact with your coach very frequently. You get a check-in every time you have a workout. So if you want someone to be your co-pilot and teach you how to move well, give you form advice, give you the right program, we're there for you. We do nutrition coaching and we match you with who we think would be a good fit based on goals and history, but also personality, because you end up talking to your coach more than your family sometimes. So we want to make sure that's a really good fit. Because we care about your lifting probably more than anybody else does. So we try to make that fun. So if you have a home gym, if you go somewhere, as long as you have a smartphone and you're able to record your lifts, we're here for you. Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So we are going to have a link in the show notes. You guys are offering 50% off first month with the code. So that'll be amazing. If anybody is curious about, do you guys do beginners and more experience? You guys
everybody.
Everybody. Perfect.
Yeah. Most of our clients are like really 35 to 55. We have some younger people who like to compete, but it's like professionals who have families and just want to be strong.
The masses, right?
Yes.
This is not just like elite level stuff. Like, this is like regular people. So 50% off your first month coaching. We'll link to that in the show notes. And then people can also find you and Barbell Logic at your website, and your Instagram. We'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can find you easily as well. This was so great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. But don't worry, we're dropping new episodes every Thursday. In the meantime, head over to the show notes for all the links from today's episode, or go to fitbottomedgirls.com/podcast to catch up on past episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.